It was one of those quiet evenings when everything seemed just right. My wife Anne and I were sitting on the couch watching a TV series. We laughed and exchanged knowing glances. It was one of those nights when it felt like the outside world didn't exist, and all that mattered was our little bubble of domestic happiness. Suddenly, she turned off the TV and looked at me with a look I hadn't seen in a while. "We need to talk about something," she said, a slight smile on her lips, but her eyes betrayed a certain tension. My stomach tightened. When a sentence starts like that, it's usually not a good sign. I tried to stay calm and asked her what was wrong. She took a deep breath, nervously playing with the edge of her sweatshirt. "It's not that something's wrong," she began, her tone a bit hesitant. "It's just that I've been thinking about something different. Something that could liven up our relationship a bit." I looked at her, confused. I was happy with how things were between us, so her proposal caught me off guard. "What do you mean by different?" Anne bit her lip. "I know it's a strange thing to say, and I don't want you to think I'm dissatisfied, but there's something I've been considering lately." My heart was racing. Anne had never been an insecure or doubtful person, so seeing her so hesitant worried me. "Go ahead," I encouraged her, trying to mask my unease. "I want you to consider the idea of trying a threesome." I was sure I hadn't understood correctly. "A threesome?" I repeated, surprised. "With whom?" She looked down for a moment, then slowly looked up. "With my mother." I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. I looked at her in disbelief, trying to figure out if it was a joke or a provocation. But Anna wasn't the type for tasteless jokes, and her serious gaze confirmed it. "Your mother? You mean your mother Angela?" My voice trembled slightly. It was unthinkable. Angela was undoubtedly an attractive woman, but she was my mother-in-law. The very idea of doing something so intimate with her seemed absurd. "Yes, my mother," Anna confirmed, holding my gaze. "I know it sounds crazy, but I've thought about it a lot. She herself suggested it. She thinks it could be an exciting experience for all of us." Silence fell heavily in the room. I tried to find the words, but I was too confused to articulate a coherent thought. Angela. The woman who had welcomed me into her family with kindness and warmth. The same woman who, just a few days ago, treated me like a normal son-in-law. "Did you and your mother talk about this?" I asked finally, trying to keep calm. Anna nodded. "Yes, we talked at length. She thinks it could bring our family closer, and I find it intriguing. It's not about a lack of love or attraction between us, but about exploring something different." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I leaned back on the couch, trying to make sense of my thoughts. It was as if suddenly the world had tilted on the wrong axis, and reality had twisted into a direction I could never have imagined. Angela, Anna's mother. I couldn't even conceive the idea. I was torn between my sense of loyalty to my wife and the absurdity of the situation. Anna remained silent for a moment, watching me closely, as if trying to read every nuance of my emotions. Her hand gently rested on my leg, a reassuring gesture, but also one filled with tension. "You don't have to respond right away," she finally said, her voice softer. "I know it's something that takes time to accept, and I don't want you to feel pressured in any way. I just want you to think about it." Think about it? How could I? My mind was in chaos. Images of Angela crossed my mind in a way I never wanted to consider. She was a woman I had always respected, but never looked at in that way. She was my mother-in-law, for God's sake. "Anna, but your mother, how can she want something like that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "I mean, she's your mother. That's what's leaving me speechless." She sighed, stroking my arm. "I know. It's strange, I understand. But my mother has always been open-minded, maybe more than I thought. She's had a different life than ours, and when we talked, She explained that she's always seen sexuality in a free way. She told me that for her, it would just be a new experience, something that could make us all feel more connected in a new way. My brain could barely grasp the concept. Angela wasn't just an attractive, mature woman, but also a constant and important presence in our lives. It was hard to even imagine an evolution of our relationship that included something so intimate. I couldn't understand how Anna could see it so naturally. "I'm not sure how to feel," I said slowly, trying to be honest without hurting her feelings. "I never thought something like this could even be considered, especially by you." Anna looked at me with sincere eyes. "I'm not suggesting this because something is missing between us, and I know it sounds strange, but I want us to have total honesty between us, to be able to explore our fantasies, even the strangest ones, without judging each other. I don't want you to feel pressured. I just want to know if you could at least think about it." Think about it. Just imagining such a scenario made me feel like I was slipping into unknown territory. "I don't know, Anna. It's a lot. I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes either. I need to process all of this. It's your mother." "Yes, it's my mother, and I respect her. I love her. She loves you too. She sees you as part of our family, more than you can imagine." Her words struck me. I wasn't sure what exactly Angela meant by loving me, but something in this new perspective made me uneasy. I tried to regain control of the conversation, shifting the focus to something more practical. "But what if things go wrong?" I asked, fearing the potential consequences. "What if it changes our relationship with her? I mean, what happens if one of us feels uncomfortable?" Anna smiled sweetly. "Nothing bad has to happen. It's an experience we can share with total honesty. If any of us feels uncomfortable, we just stop. There would be no secrets, only transparency." I remained silent, trying to absorb her words. The idea of transparency comforted me, but it didn't dissipate the confusion I felt inside. I needed time. "Listen, Anna, I appreciate that you've spoken to me openly, and I appreciate that you wanted to explore this idea so directly, but I need time to reflect on all this. I can't give you an answer now." Anna gently caressed my face, as if she had anticipated my reaction. "There's no rush. I want you to be sure. Whatever you decide, we'll only do it if it's something that makes us both happy." In the following days, I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. Anna seemed to have dropped the subject, but it was as though an invisible shadow lingered between us. A latent tension I felt whenever we were together. I couldn't look at her mother without that proposal creeping back into my mind, trapping my thoughts in a loop of confusion and unspoken desire. Angela, on the other hand, seemed no different at all. Every time we met, she was always the same elegant, self-assured woman with that calm and welcoming air that had always characterized her. Yet, sometimes, I felt I caught something in her eyes. A flash of awareness, as if she knew everything that was happening inside me. One evening, while Anna was out for work, I received a message from her. "Anna, Mom is coming over for dinner tonight. I want it to be a special evening. Let's talk about it together. I know you're still confused, but I'm here for anything. Mom and I will be waiting for you." My heart started racing. Anna had decided to take the situation to a new level, and despite my reservations, I felt a strange curiosity mixed with excitement. I had told myself I needed more time, but the truth was, I hadn't been able to stop thinking about it. And perhaps, deep down, a part of me wanted to see where this path might lead. When Angela arrived at the house that evening, she greeted me with her usual sweet smile. She was wearing a black dress that made her even more alluring. There was something slightly different in her demeanor, something more open, perhaps. She didn't speak much, but there was a strange tension in the air that seemed to envelop all of us. Anna was surprisingly calm. She had prepared a light dinner, and while we ate, she tried to keep the conversation on trivial matters like work and weekend plans. However, I couldn't help but notice how every glance between her and her mother seemed laden with unspoken meanings. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Anna took a glass of wine and sat next to me, while Angela positioned herself on the armchair across from us. The silence that followed was almost unbearable, as if we were all waiting for something. Anna was the first to speak, breaking the tension. "Well," she began, setting down her glass, "maybe it's time to address the matter." I suddenly felt like I was being watched, as though I was at the center of a scene I hadn't anticipated. I looked at Angela, then Anna. Both of them were looking at me with a disarming calmness. Angela was the first to speak. "I know Anna has talked to you about our idea," she said in a soft tone, without a trace of embarrassment. "And I want you to know that there's no pressure from my side. If you're not ready, or if it's not something you want, you can say so. We'll all agree to let it go." I felt as if everything I had feared had finally reached a turning point. Angela and Anna were looking at me with an understanding that surprised me. I sensed that this evening would be decisive for our future, whatever direction we chose to take. Her words hit me with their honesty. There was no malice, no forcefulness. It was a proposal, nothing more. But that delicate tone made me realize that the final decision was mine. Anna leaned in closer, brushing my arm. "Don't do anything you don't want to," she said softly. "But if a part of you is curious, if there's even a single desire you feel, you know we're both here for you." I realized that my fears weren't so much about others' judgment, but about my own. The truth was, that proposal, as absurd as it seemed, had awakened something in me, a hidden desire I had never dared to explore. I looked up and met Angela's gaze. She smiled at me, a smile that was not just one of approval, but also of complicity. At that moment, I realized that the step I was about to take would be beyond any limit I had ever imagined. Anna took my hand and, without saying a word, brought it to her lips, kissing it gently. Then she stood up and approached her mother, who also stood up. The two women looked at each other for a moment, exchanging a glance that seemed to contain all the answers. Angela took the first step, approaching me with a calmness that completely disarmed me. "Are you sure you want this?" she asked softly, her hand brushing my cheek. I nodded, feeling my body respond before my mind. Angela kissed me with a sweetness that surprised me, as if she was testing the waters, gauging my level of comfort. My heart pounded in my chest, aware of how unusual and charged with tension the situation was. Despite the apparent calm, I was filled with doubts and conflicting thoughts. Anna moved closer, placing a hand on my shoulder and caressing me lightly. Her gaze was warm and understanding. There was no trace of jealousy or insecurity in her eyes, only a sense of acceptance that made me feel somehow safer. It was as if all of this was a shared choice between them, an exploration they wanted to undertake together without any coercion. "I want you to feel comfortable," Anna whispered in my ear, her fingers continuing to trace along my arm. "There's nothing wrong with what we're doing if we all desire it." Angela pulled back slightly, looking into my eyes, searching for a sign. "Are you sure you want to continue?" she asked once more, as if offering me one last way out. I took a deep breath, trying to focus my thoughts. I had never been in such a delicate situation, and I knew that whatever choice I made would impact my relationship with Anna, and, of course, with Angela. "Yes," I finally replied, my voice low but convinced. At that point, the atmosphere changed. Anna and Angela seemed ready to proceed, but everything happened naturally, without haste, as if we were exploring something new together, step by step. Their hands moved with grace, their gestures were attentive and full of care. Angela moved even closer, her touch gentle and controlled. Every movement was measured, as if she was trying to establish a deeper connection without overstepping the bounds of my comfort. I felt immersed in an atmosphere charged with electricity, a palpable tension that continued to grow, but in a surprisingly gentle way. Anna, meanwhile, moved gracefully around us, almost like a silent guide. Her gaze reassured me and seemed to invite me to let go, to trust in the process and in them. There were no words, only light gestures and looks that communicated much more than any sentence. Angela's hands continued to glide along my arm, her breath calm and steady, while Anna leaned towards me, placing a hand on my chest. Her touch was familiar, warm, and sent a shiver down my spine. In some way, their presence created a sort of balance that made everything feel less unreal. My breathing grew deeper, and at that moment, I realized I was crossing a boundary I had never imagined exploring. Reality seemed suspended, as if time itself had slowed down to allow us to move calmly, to take all the time needed to understand what we were doing. Angela paused for a moment, looking into my eyes. It was clear she was seeking one last confirmation, a sign that I was still present, aware, and willing to continue. Anna also seemed to be waiting, letting me take the next step, to decide how far I wanted to go. In that moment, I understood that it was not just a matter of physical desire, but of emotional connection. Angela remained there, her eyes fixed on mine, almost as if she wanted to explore my thoughts before moving forward. Anna, on the other hand, seemed ready to follow my pace, to respect my timing. There was a silence filled with expectations, but also with respect. I realized that, despite the unusual nature of the situation, everything was happening with a calmness and care I did not expect. There was no rush, no pressure. Angela continued to move slowly, her gestures subtle, and Anna, beside me, observed my every reaction. I felt the tension ease, and with it, my mind opened to what was happening. With a deep breath, I took a step towards them. It was a conscious choice, an acceptance of this reality I had slowly come to embrace. Angela touched me again with her confident touch, and Anna moved closer, her eyes filled with a strange combination of understanding and desire. "It's all right," Anna whispered to me. "We're here together." With those words, it felt as if all the barriers I had erected until that moment had fallen. Angela kissed me again, this time with more assurance, and I felt Anna behind me, her breath close to my skin. The next few minutes were a succession of delicate movements, of gestures as sweet as they were charged with a subtle tension. There was a kind of dance in what was happening, a balance between the three of us, each attentive to the other. The moment transformed into something deeper, more intimate, but always with that sense of mutual respect. Angela continued to move with a gentleness that made everything almost surreal. It was as if we were dancing, each aware of the other's space, careful not to cross those invisible boundaries that made the experience so unique. Anna, beside us, was a constant presence, always ready to intervene, to make us feel comfortable. The moment evolved slowly, without haste. The emotions flowed between us, a mix of curiosity, excitement, and a strange form of intimacy. I found myself thinking that, despite everything we were doing, it was a shared exploration. It was not simply about physical desire, but about an experience that bound us in a new and unexpected way. Over time, the movements became slower, more deliberate. Angela and Anna seemed to read my thoughts, adjusting every gesture to make me feel comfortable. The crescendo that had seemed inevitable was now fading, like a melody reaching its natural conclusion. There was no longer an urgency to explore, only a desire to close that chapter with gentleness. I gently moved away from Angela and looked into Anna's eyes. Her smile was reassuring, full of understanding. I knew that what we had just experienced was something extraordinary, something that would change our relationship in ways I perhaps didn't fully understand yet. Angela stood up slowly, as if sensing that the moment had come to its natural end. She turned to Anna and smiled at her conspiratorially. Then she approached me and caressed my cheek. "There was no need to go further," she said in a calm, maternal tone. "We shared something special, and sometimes that's enough to understand each other." Anna moved closer to me, resting her head on my shoulder. "We're here to explore together," she whispered to me. "But we should never feel obligated to do something we don't want to." Their words struck me, making me realize that the bond we had built that night was much deeper than the mere physical act. We had explored our limits, our curiosities, and had stopped when it was right to do so. The mutual respect and understanding had ensured that everything happened as naturally as possible. I looked at Angela once more, then at Anna. I knew that from that moment on, nothing would be the same, but I was certain that our bond had become stronger, more authentic. "Thank you," I finally said, feeling the weight of everything we had just experienced. Angela smiled, nodding gently, before bidding farewell with one last affectionate look. Anna stayed beside me, holding my hand, as the night around us seemed to envelop us with its calm. Angela discreetly walked away, leaving Anna and me alone in the room. The silence that followed was enveloping, but not at all awkward. On the contrary, I felt a strange sense of peace, as if everything that had happened made sense. Anna looked at me with a serene gaze, still holding my hand. "We're together in all this," she said gently, her voice reassuring. "No matter what happens, the important thing is that we have each other." I nodded, deeply understanding the meaning of those words. What we had experienced that night was an experience that had pushed us out of our comfort zone, but we had done it together, with respect and love. It wasn't just about exploring something new, but about strengthening our bond. I leaned in to kiss her, a gesture that encapsulated everything I felt at that moment: gratitude, love, and understanding. We didn't need any more words. We both knew we were ready to turn the page, with a new awareness of our relationship. The night advanced slowly, but the tension had now dissipated, leaving space only for serenity. Next to Anna, I felt more secure, more in sync with what we had become. "It's been a journey," I finally said, breaking the silence with a smile. "It has," she replied, caressing my face. "And there will be more, but always together." With those words, we rose from the couch, ready to leave behind the night and all that it had brought with it. We knew that our relationship had reached a new depth, and whatever the future held, we were ready to face it side by side. And as the door closed behind us, I realized that the unexpected triangle was not so much a matter of desire, but a test of trust, mutual respect, and love, elements that would continue to guide us on our journey together.